Ma'am, step out of the car, please. Her heart didn't race, but her breath caught. The words came from a uniformed officer standing in the glaring sun, badge gleaming. She moved slowly, hands visible on the steering wheel. Is there a problem, officer? The man's gaze didn't waver. Routine check, identification, please. She reached into her purse, pulled out her driver's license, and held it steady. A second officer appeared, eyes scanning her and her husband. In the passenger seat. He leaned forward, voice low but firm. Where are you visiting from? California, she said. On vacation. The officers exchanged a glance, subtle but heavy. Her husband opened the door. Tall, calm, with the kind of quiet confidence that fills a room without needing words. There an issue here? He asked, voice steady but commanding. The first officer looked at him for the first time, then back at the woman's ID. No issue, sir. Just routine. Her husband nodded slowly. I hope you understand that what you're doing can feel intimidating, especially when it's without cause. The officer's jaw tightened. We have to be thorough. She stepped forward, voice clear and composed. I'm here to enjoy my vacation, not to be questioned like a suspect. A beat passed. The second officer finally spoke, softer. We apologize if we caused discomfort. Her husband's eyes met theirs evenly. Actions speak louder than words. The tension in the air shifted. The officers lowered their gazes. She gathered her belongings. Thank you for your time. The officers nodded as she and her husband got back into the car. As they drove away, she glanced at him and whispered, I hate how common this feels. He reached over, squeezing her hand gently. We keep moving forward. And in that quiet moment, the weight of the encounter lingered, not in anger but in resolute dignity. Sir, could you please roll down your window? The officer said, voice firm but not unkind. He complied, eyes steady but cautious. Is there a problem? Just. Routine procedure, the officer replied, shining his flashlight briefly across the interior. License and registration, please. She reached into her bag, hands calm but her mind racing. Here you go. The officer glanced at the documents, then back at the couple. You two traveling together? He asked. Yes, her husband answered, voice smooth. On vacation. The officer nodded, but his eyes lingered a moment longer. Subtle suspicion veiled thinly beneath professionalism. Do you have any weapons or illegal substances in the vehicle? The second officer asked as he approached. No, she said firmly. Her husband's jaw tightened. We're law-abiding citizens. The officers exchanged a brief look, tension simmering in the silence. Ma'am, we just need to verify some information, the first officer said. She took a slow breath. I understand, but please remember we are guests here. Respect matters. The officer's gaze faltered for a moment. Her husband added quietly, a respectful approach builds trust faster than force. The officers backed off, words now softer. Thank you for your cooperation, the first officer said. As the couple continued on their way, she glanced at her husband, the frustration melting into resolve. We'll keep our heads high, he said. She nodded, feeling strength in their unity. Sometimes dignity speaks loudest when voices stay calm, and that made all the difference. You two mind if we run a quick check? The officer asked, voice steady but polite. She nodded, voice calm. Of course. Her husband leaned slightly forward, eyes fixed on the officer. We're happy to cooperate. The officer's flashlight flicked over the license plate. Then, back to their faces. Traveling far. Just a short vacation, she replied, trying to enjoy the moment. The second officer circled the car slowly, silent but alert. She watched his movements, heart steady but aware. Everything seems in order, the first officer said finally. Thanks for your patience. Her husband's voice softened. We appreciate your professionalism, the officers nodded, stepping back. As the engine hummed to life, she exhaled quietly. It's exhausting. He reached for her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. But we're still here. They drove away under the fading sun, carrying with them a quiet strength forged not by confrontation, but by dignity maintained. Sometimes the calmest voice echoes the loudest truth. The officer's eyes lingered a moment longer, then he nodded curtly. "Thank you for your cooperation." She kept her hands visible on the steering wheel, her breath steady, but her mind racing with the weight of the encounter. Her husband reached over, resting his hand gently on hers. "We handled that well," he said quietly. She glanced at him, the corner of her mouth lifting just slightly. "Too well," she admitted, "but it's what's required." He squeezed her hand, a silent promise of solidarity. The car pulled back onto the road, the fading sun casting long shadows across the dashboard. Neither spoke for a while. The quiet between them filled with unspoken thoughts. In a world quick to judge and slow to understand, their calm together was an act of quiet resistance. And in that silence, their strength spoke volumes. The road stretched ahead, the sky melting into hues of orange and purple. Inside the car, silence held a weight heavier than words. She finally spoke, voice soft but steady. "Every time this happens, I wonder why it still surprises me." He glanced at her, eyes reflecting the fading light. "Because it's a world that's never made to surprise you with fairness." She nodded, fingers tightening around the steering wheel. "It's exhausting to always be the calm one. Sometimes calm is the loudest protest," he replied. She let out a slow breath, a mixture of weariness and resolve. "I want our children to live without this fear. We have to be the change we want to see," he said, "and that starts with us." Their hands met briefly across the console, a small gesture holding years of hope and pain. As night settled around them, they drove forward, not just away from the checkpoint, but toward a future they vowed to shape with quiet dignity and unyielding strength. The car moved steadily through the darkening streets, the city lights flickering like distant stars. Inside, the weight of the day pressed quietly between them, unspoken but deeply felt. She glanced over, eyes reflective. "Do you think it'll ever change? The way we're seen, the way we're treated?" He considered her question, voice low and certain. "Change takes time, but it also takes us, holding space, standing firm," she sighed softly. "Sometimes I wonder how much more strength we need to carry." He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "The kind of strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard." Silence fell, not empty, but full of understanding. They drove on together, their quiet resilience carving a path through a world still learning to see them fully. And in that shared calm, they found a powerful truth. Dignity, once reclaimed, can never be taken away. The streets glided beneath the tires as darkness settled deeper, wrapping the city in quiet shadows. Inside the car, the silence wasn't empty. It was heavy with unspoken thoughts, with the weight of lives lived between glances and assumptions. She broke the quiet, voice soft, yet steady. "Sometimes I wonder if people will ever really see us, beyond their fears, their biases." He glanced at her, eyes reflecting both the streetlights and years of struggle. "They might not all see us, but those who matter will. And we keep showing up for them." She nodded slowly, fingers curling tightly on the wheel. "It's exhausting to be strong all the time." He reached over, brushing her hand with his. "Strength isn't just in standing tall, it's in knowing when to hold on and when to let others stand with you." She looked at him, a flicker of hope lighting her eyes. "I want our story to be different, for them." He smiled quietly. "And it will be, because we're writing it, one moment at a time." The city lights blurred past, but inside that car, their shared quiet was a beacon, proof that dignity, spoken softly, carries the loudest power. Together, they drove forward, not just into the night, but toward a future shaped by resilience, love, an unbreakable grace. The night deepened outside, but inside the car, a quiet resolve took root. She leaned back, eyes tracing the darkened sky through the windshield. Every time something like that happens, it chips away at me. But moments like this, they build me back up. He nodded, fingers gently resting on her hand. It's a balance we keep, wearing strength and softness at once. Not everyone understands that. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carries both pain and hope. I want us to be seen for who we really are, not the stereotypes, not the assumptions. He tightened his grip just slightly. And we will be, with every quiet step we take, with every calm word we speak, we change the story. A soft pause settled between them, heavy with everything left unsaid. The world isn't ready for our truth, she whispered. But maybe that's okay, because we're not asking for permission. We're just showing up. He met her gaze, steady and sure. Together. The car continued down the road, headlights cutting through the dark, carrying two souls bound by dignity, resilience, and the unshakable power of quiet courage. And in that stillness, their story became louder than any shout ever could. The road stretched ahead, empty except for the glow of streetlights casting long shadows. Inside the car, their hands remained intertwined, a silent vow between them. She broke the quiet, voice low and thoughtful. It's strange how moments like today remind you who you really are. He squeezed her hand gently. And how far we've come, despite everything, she nodded. But I worry about those who come after us. Will they face the same silence, the same suspicion? He looked ahead, steady. They might. But our strength is the bridge, the path that makes it easier for them. A soft smile played on her lips. We're not just surviving. We're paving the way. He glanced at her, eyes full of promise. Exactly. Every calm word, every unshaken glance, every step forward matters. The city passed by like a quiet witness to their resolve. In the space between them, dignity breathed, resilient, unyielding, and quietly revolutionary. And as the night deepened, so did their commitment, to be seen, to be heard, and to never let silence define their story again. She rested her head against the window, watching the city lights blur into streaks. Sometimes I wonder how many moments like these it takes to change the world. He reached over, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Maybe it's not about the number. Maybe it's about the courage to keep showing up. Her eyes met his, steady and sure. I'm tired of being invisible. And I'm tired of the world pretending not to see us, he replied softly. They shared a quiet smile, no words needed. The car hummed through the night, carrying two souls bound by resilience. In that silence, they found a powerful truth. Their presence alone was a protest, their calm a revolution, and sometimes the loudest voices are the ones never raised. He glanced at her, eyes tired but determined. We carry a weight most don't see, but it doesn't break us. She nodded, voice soft. It shapes us, makes us who we are, he smiled faintly, and who we will be. They drove on through the quiet streets, hands still intertwined, each knowing that in the face of silence and judgment, their calm stood as a quiet but unbreakable defiance. Together, they moved forward, not just in distance, but in the unspoken. Promised to keep rewriting their story, because sometimes strength is not loud, it's steady, and that steadiness changes everything. Her voice cut through the gentle hum of the restaurant like a sharp blade, precise and unyielding. The man behind the table, dressed in an expensive suit with a smug smile, leaned back as if to assert his dominance, the air thick with silent assumptions. She didn't flinch. Her eyes met his with calm certainty. I'm exactly where I belong. He scoffed softly, dismissive. A woman like you, serving tables, shouldn't you be somewhere else? She pulled a sleek badge from her apron pocket. The gold letters gleamed. Executive Director. The room seemed to pause. He blinked, the smirk fading. "You own this place?" She nodded. "Every corner, every decision, and I'm here to remind you not to mistake my role by my uniform." The whispered murmurs around them grew louder, eyes wide with surprise. He swallowed hard, the weight of his prejudice laid bare. She stepped forward, voice steady and clear. "Respect isn't given because of your assumptions. It's earned, and I'm the one who earned it here." He looked away, unable to meet her gaze. The silence spoke louder than any insult ever could, and in that moment, dignity reclaimed the room. The restaurant buzzed softly with resumed conversations, but the atmosphere was irrevocably changed. The man sat frozen in his chair, the edges of his anger softened by the undeniable truth he'd been served. The weight of the executive's presence lingered in the air like a silent verdict. He glanced at her again, eyes tracing the gleaming badge she had revealed, then up to meet her gaze, a look no longer filled with condescension, but a flicker of newfound respect. The smugness he wore earlier had drained away, replaced by the quiet humbling that comes when assumptions crumble. "I never expected this," he said, voice low, almost unsure. "I judged you without knowing. I was wrong." She offered no smile. Her calm was her power. It's easier to judge from afar, easier still to dismiss someone without knowing their story. But that kind of blindness only keeps us apart. Around them, waiters paused in their steps, eyes quietly observing the shift. Diners exchanged glances that held recognition, not of shame, but of a moment witnessed. The walls of the restaurant seemed to lean in, as if the space itself held its breath. "I'm sorry," the man said again, voice more earnest now. For every assumption, every careless word, she held his gaze, steady and unflinching. Apologies are words. Change is action. The silence stretched between them, a pause pregnant with possibility. "What can I do?" he asked quietly, his voice stripped of bravado. "Start by listening," she said. "Really listening. Then by respecting, and finally by seeing people for who they truly are, not the boxes you've been taught to put them in." He nodded slowly, the weight of his earlier arrogance giving way to something humbler. "I will." She turned, dignity reclaiming her every step, walking away with a grace that silenced the room more effectively than any raised voice could. Behind her, the murmurs resumed, softer, more thoughtful. Conversations that once might have been casual now carried the weight of reflection. The restaurant had returned to its rhythm, but nothing would ever be quite the same. The man sat back, folding his hands before him, the lessons settling deep within. In the quiet aftermath, he understood that power isn't always loud. Sometimes it is found in the unyielding calm of truth spoken with dignity. Later that evening, as the city lights flickered outside and the restaurant emptied, she stood by the window. Her reflection merged with the shadows, a symbol of strength. Forged in silence and quiet resilience, a waiter approached, hesitating. "You handled that well," he said softly. She turned, eyes meeting his with warmth. "Sometimes the quietest voices carry the heaviest truths." He nodded, inspired. As the door closed behind the last customer, the room seemed to hum with new energy, a subtle revolution sparked not by anger, but by the undeniable presence of a woman who refused to be unseen. Her story, once assumed and dismissed, had rewritten itself with every measured step, every calm word. And in that rewriting, she became more than a badge or a uniform. She became a testament to the power of quiet dignity in the face of prejudice. The night carried on, but the lesson lingered, clear, powerful, and impossible to ignore. Because sometimes the strongest voice is the one that never raises itself at all.